videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Night Chats. Appreciate you guys all stopping by tonight to hang out. I got a couple videos here tonight I'm going to put together. It's going to be based a little bit loosely on consciousness and on the simulation theory. I promise you it's not a long diatribe of anything really. It's just some videos getting into those subjects, but there's a lot more that goes with it. Things like quantum mechanics, quantum reality, some experiments that are done. But they're a couple, 5-6 minute videos, I think it is, with a shorter one preceding it. Here to start with, so they're not, super long. But altogether it'll be a little bit longer video. So I hope you guys, you like it. I hope the videos I'm putting out, you guys see the value in it. You guys are watching these videos. I'm watching the view counts. I really, really think this stuff is a little bit more interesting. I'm surprised more people aren't watching, but I know the world we live in right now is super, super crazy. So definitely not throwing any shade. I get it. I appreciate each and every view I get. If I get one view, that's one more than I had before. So it makes it all worth it. And I just want to thank you all for stopping by to watch these videos. And like I said, we're going to put this thing here together and hopefully at the end I'll have some more words. But for now, I think we'll just get right into it. So thanks again, guys. Here we go. Let's get into the video.
We live in a simulation and I can easily prove it for you. How can you guys see all of my head movements even though I have this huge towel between me and the mirror?
I don't know, and it just light reflecting?
It is light reflecting. It's light reflecting off a reality that you guys behind the camera and you are creating because it's being viewed. If you guys were not there to view it just like a simulation, it would save resources and it would not generate that reflection. It goes to the double slit theory. It's the same thing. Let me show you. In this video, it will explain the double slit theory where light and reality change based on whether or not it's being viewed.
Beams of light particles called photons at a screen with two slits, you'd expect to see two strips to correspond with the two slits. Instead, we see a pattern of light and dark bands. This suggests that light behaves like waves that pass through both slits simultaneously, interfering with each other to create the pattern on the second screen. However, when scientists used a measuring device to observe the slit that each photon passed through, the interference pattern disappeared and two strips appeared. The act of observing which slit it went through changed the behavior of the photons. No one knows why observing a particle causes its behavior to change.
Now that is exactly what happened in that bathroom. Because it was being recorded and also my wife was watching it, reality changed to where you guys were able to see both sides of the tile. Now that 100% proves that we live in a simulation. Now that doesn't mean that there's not a God. That means that God is the programmer.
Animals are conscious. Most would probably agree that plants are not. Is this where we can draw the line? Apparently not. Thanks to the work of Cleve Baxter, Dr. Ken Hashimoto, and others, it is clear that even plants are remarkably conscious. In 1966, polygraph expert Cleve Baxter conducted a series of experiments which conclusively demonstrated that plants are capable of intelligent thought processes. First, he took a trachena plant, a dragon tree, in his office and connected lie detection equipment to its leaves. Next, he watered the plant and found that its polygraph output was similar to the undulation of human happiness. In order to test his developing theory and elicit a stronger reaction, Baxter thought to threaten the plant by burning one of its leaves. With this thought in mind, even before retrieving a match, he noticed a strong positive curve appear on the polygraph paper. He then left the room to find some matches, and as soon as he arrived back, another high peak appeared on the paper. As he lit a match, the plant's fear reaction spiked and remained high as he proceeded to burn one of its leaves. In further trials, Baxter found that if he showed less inclination to burn the plant, its reaction was weaker, and if he merely pretended to burn it, there was no reaction. So not only was the plant appearing to show genuine happiness and fear, but it seemed to be discerning true intentions from false ones. Irvin Laszlo wrote, "In 1966, Cleve Baxter, a pioneer of lie detection methods, decided to threaten a dragon plant in his office. A few minutes before, and having on a whim connected the plant to the electrodes of one of his lie detectors, he had noticed that when he watered its roots, the plant gave what in a human being would be interpreted as an emotional reaction. To arouse the strongest reaction he could, Baxter first placed a leaf of the plant in hot coffee, with no apparent response. He then decided on a worse threat, to burn the leaf. But as soon as he thought about the flame, there was an instant response from the plant. Without Baxter moving but just thinking about the threat, the plant had reacted. When he left the room and returned with some matches, there was a second surge of anticipation from the plant, and as he reluctantly burned the leaf, there was a subdued but still noticeable reaction from the dragon plant. Over the next 40 years, Baxter ran a large series of experiments, building up a huge archive of data showing that all organisms are in continual communication in a vast matrix of dynamic and non-local awareness. In further trials, Baxter tried burning the leaves of other nearby plants not connected to the polygraph, and the original dragon plant, still connected, registered the same wild response to its friend's pain as when its own leaves were burned. In another experiment, Baxter placed 2 plants in an empty room, blindfolded 6 students, and had them draw straws. The receiver of the short straw was then secretly instructed to uproot and destroy one of the 2 plants. Since they were all blindfolded, only the short straw student and the remaining plant knew the identity of the murderer. 2 hours later, Baxter connected the remaining plant to the polygraph machine and instructed each student to walk past it. The murder witness plant registered absolutely no reaction as the 5 innocent students walked by, but then went crazy almost off the charts as the murderer came close. Somehow it correctly identified and emotionally reacted to the guilty student. Baxter's experiments suggest that plants are not only conscious, intelligent, and emotional, but also telepathic. Plants will indeed register a typical human fear reaction on the polygraph precisely when someone directs a malevolent thought towards them. These experiments have been replicated many times with the same results. Somehow, plants are able to intuit and react to certain human thought patterns. Lynn McTaggart wrote, "The Baxter effect had also been seen between plants and animals. When brine shrimp in one location died suddenly, this fact seemed to instantly register with plants in another location, as recorded on a standard psychogalvanic response (PGR) instrument. Baxter had carried out this type of experiment over several hundred miles, and among paramecium, mold cultures, and blood samples, and in each instance some mysterious communication occurred between living things and plants. As in Star Wars, each death was registered as a disturbance in the field." Other experiments have been performed testing the effect of prayer, positive and negative directed intention and emotion on plants. Dr. Bernard Grad of McGill University had a team of psychic healers habitually direct positive or negative feelings onto a variety of plants. The positively infused plants survived and thrived, while negatively infused plants withered and many of them died. Reverend Franklin Lohr, a Northampton pastor, performed similar studies with his parishioners, testing the power of prayer to affect plants and seeds. In one experiment, he planted 46 corn kernels evenly spaced in a round pan with 23 on each side. He then gave daily positive growth prayer to half of the kernels and anti-growth prayer to the other half. 8 days later, the positive side had 16 sturdy budding seedlings growing, and the negative side had only 1 barely left alive. In another test, one of his parishioners, Erwin Proust, subjected 6 ivy plants to daily anti-growth prayer while watering them, and within 5 weeks, 5 of them were dead. In the incredible documentary The Secret Life of Plants, Fuji Electronics Managing Director and Chief of Research Dr. Ken Hashimoto created special instruments which translate the electrical output of plants into modulated sounds, effectively giving them a voice. His wife has since been teaching the Japanese alphabet to her favorite plants. In the documentary, Mrs. Hashimoto recites Japanese letters, phonemes, words, and the plants repeat them back to her. Reminiscent of a small child trying to sound out new words, the plants are unable to properly imitate the language at first, but then actually struggle and practice, slowly improving until they are able to perfectly imitate the human sounds via their electrical output. So if plants can learn languages, show emotional output, react to emotional and intellectual stimulus, communicate with other plants, and read the minds and intentions of humans, it is quite rational to assume that the plant kingdom, just like the animal kingdom, is conscious. Adrian Cooper wrote, "This demonstrates extremely well that plant life, like all life, and indeed everything in the universe, are an inseparable aspect of the same infinite mind, consciousness, and intelligence of the source, the first cause, of God. Human beings, still totally steeped in the material world and personal ego, assume that just because a plant does not appear to have a physical brain, or a mouth, or any other animal characteristics, that they are unintelligent, or simply inanimate. Nothing, in fact, can be further from the truth. The human brain is not the real mind, any more than physical parts of a plant or a mineral are real mind." So how far down the evolutionary line does consciousness exist? The work of Dr. Masaru Emoto suggests that even water is in some sense conscious. His research began by exposing H2O to non-physical stimulus and photographing the resulting water crystals with a dark field microscope. David Icke wrote, "Japanese researcher Masaru Emoto of the IHM Institute in Tokyo has revealed how water is fundamentally affected by words, thoughts, and emotions, all of which are waveforms. He and his team exposed water to various music and different words and expressions, and then froze it to produce water crystals. When these were examined under a microscope, the response of the water was amazing. Look at the way it reacted to the words and thoughts, vibrations, of love and appreciation, and you make me sick, I will kill you. Imagine the effect on the body of our words and deeds when it is some 70% water. This is how thoughts and words affect us energetically. I should stress that it is not the words that have the effect, but the intent behind them. If you said, 'I will kill you,' in a light-hearted fashion, as a bit of fun, it would not have the same effect as it would if you meant it, or said it with malevolence. Thus, even water has the ability to distinguish between real human emotions and fake platitudes. When infused with positive intent, the H2O molecules align themselves into beautiful, symmetric, sacred geometrical forms, and when infused with negative intent, they align themselves into chaotic, non-symmetrical blobs. Obviously, the level and type of consciousness operating in water molecules is far different from human consciousness. But the fact that something in the molecules is identifying and reacting to human emotional and intellectual content suggests that even water is indeed, in some sense, conscious. Peter Russell wrote, "We usually assume that some kind of brain or nervous system is necessary before consciousness can come into being. From the perspective of the materialist meta-paradigm, this is a reasonable assumption. If consciousness arises from processes in the material world, then those processes need to occur somewhere, and the obvious candidate is the nervous system. But then we come up against the inherent problem of the materialist meta-paradigm. Whether we are considering a human brain with its tens of billions of cells, or a nematode worm with 100 or so neurons, the problem is the same. How can any purely material process ever give rise to consciousness? Can we truly draw a definitive line between conscious and non-conscious entities in the universe? At what level of simplicity do we assume matter to be insentient? Even single-cell organisms react to external stimulus, reproduce, communicate, respirate, hunt, and consume food. Is this all an unconscious, insentient program of Newton's mechanical universe? Or are even single cells imbued with a slight degree of consciousness, a minuscule internal experience of their own? When sperm and egg unite, each human begins their life as a single-cell organism, which then rapidly divides and multiplies into the conscious community of 50 trillion cells we generally know as human. In classical science, consciousness is a mysterious emergent property of this process. In the spiritual science, consciousness is the known primary property, and the physical world is the emergent mystery. Peter Russell wrote, "The capacity for inner experience could not evolve or emerge out of entirely insentient, non-experiencing matter. Experience can only come from that which already has experience. Therefore, the faculty of consciousness must be present all the way down the evolutionary tree. There is nowhere we can draw a line between conscious and non-conscious entities. There is a trace of sentience, however slight, in viruses, molecules, atoms, and even elementary particles. Some argue this implies that rocks perceive the world around them, perhaps have thoughts and feelings, and enjoy an inner mental life similar to human beings. This is clearly an absurd suggestion, and not one that was ever intended. If a bacterium's experience is a billionth of the richness and intensity of human beings, the degree of experience in the minerals of a rock might be a billion times dimmer still. They would possess none of the qualities of human consciousness, just the faintest possible glimmer of sentience."
The double slit experiment defies our understanding. It involves a laser shooting beams of light particles called photons at a screen with two parallel slits. If we mark all the spots where the photons hit the second wall, we should expect to see two strips to correspond with the two slits. But that's not what we see. Instead, we see an alternating pattern of light and dark bands. This is characteristic of the behavior of waves that pass through both slits simultaneously, interfering with each other to create the pattern on the second screen. The bright lines are where the top of waves meet, resulting in a more intense or brighter area on the screen. The darker bands are where the top of one wave meets the bottom of another, so they cancel each other out, resulting in a less intense or darker area on the screen. Here is a photo of a real interference pattern. The original double slit experiment was conducted in 1801 by British polymath Thomas Young. Since then, it's been performed with various types of particles, including electrons, and they were found to behave in the same way. This phenomenon occurs even if the photons are fired one at a time, which suggests that the photon is interfering with itself as it passes through both slits at once.
Physicists were so stumped that they decided to observe which slit the particle went through.
And that's when things get really weird. When scientists used a measuring device to observe the slit that each photon passed through, the interference pattern disappeared, and the photons started behaving like particles. Instead of the spectrum of light and dark bands, we see two bright bands, indicating that the photons chose one slit or the other. So light can display characteristics of both particles and waves, known as wave-particle duality. It appears that light decides to behave as a wave when it's not being watched, and acts like a particle when it is being measured. The mere act of observing which slit it went through changed the behavior of the photons, almost as if they were aware they were being watched. It's kind of like how in a video game, the environment and objects only load when the player focuses on or interacts with them. The entire world isn't rendered all at once, allowing the game to save processing power and optimize resources. Likewise, light seems to behave like waves, but when we observe it, it's as if we're loading its properties, causing it to change and act like particles. Physicist Richard Feynman famously said, "The double slit experiment is absolutely impossible to explain in any classical way, and has in it the heart of quantum mechanics. In reality, it contains the only mystery." The most widely accepted theory to explain this phenomenon comes from physicist Niels Bohr, who proposed that particles like photons don't have definite properties until they're observed. So in the case of light, photons exist in a wave-like form representing a range of possible positions until they are observed. When we measure or observe the particle, we force it to choose a definite state, behaving like particles. This is called the Copenhagen interpretation, named in honor of Bohr's home city. However, to this day, no one knows why observing a particle causes its behavior to change. not everyone was a fan of his theory. Einstein disagreed that particles could be in multiple states at once until observed. He was uncomfortable with the inherent randomness of such an interpretation, and famously said, "God does not play dice with the universe." Einstein believed that the universe followed a consistent set of rules, like how his general relativity theory predicted the motion of planets around the sun. He spent his later years trying to develop a unified theory that explained everything in the universe, but he didn't succeed.
Physicists recently conducted a variation on the double slit experiment.
In April 2023, researchers at Imperial College London swapped out the screen with 2 slits for a transparent material used in smartphone screens called ITO. They first fired a laser beam at the material. When a second laser was directed at the material and pulsed super quickly in quadrillionths of a second, it caused the material to become temporarily reflective. The interaction of laser 2 with the material changed the frequency and therefore the color of the light from laser 1 that was reflected off the material. This experiment shows that by manipulating time rather than space, they were able to create interference patterns similar to the interference observed in the original double slit experiment. There are certain things in life we take for granted. If you don't get enough sleep, you'll feel tired and groggy. If you drive recklessly, you're more likely to get into an accident. But sometimes there are principles that govern our lives that we just can't explain. The perplexing result of the double slit experiment is up for interpretation, with some suggestions that this is evidence our world could be programmed. So far, not even the best scientific minds can explain the bizarre behavior of particles, at least not yet. There are many puzzles that are perplexing. For example, can you tell what's wrong with the gears Leonardo da Vinci wanted to?
Yeah, so there you go. For you guys that were able to follow along with that, it's mind blowing. It's absolutely mind blowing to think that matter, all matter in this world, us included, we're made up of nothing more than atoms. And so these photons and these electrons and basically atoms that they're shooting through, these atoms aren't responding the way they should unless they're being observed. So basically it means they could be doing anything they want. It could be forming anything it wants. Photons could be forming anything it wants, or maybe nothing at all until it's observed. Then once it's observed, it acts like it's supposed to, and it shows what it's supposed to show, and therefore, has all those qualities. But that's mind blowing because that means we're in a simulation, right? I mean, if it basically is showing that our reality is not rendered unless it's being observed, I mean, the implications of that are just absolutely staggering. It leads to you to have to believe we live in a computer generated world, just like they mentioned in the video. In a video game, which is a simulation, when you're playing that game, you only see what's in front of you on the screen. So the rest of the world that you're playing in, you don't see the whole world all at once. You only see what's directly in front of you. So the computer only has to generate what's in front of you. It doesn't have to generate the rest of the world. No. It just has to generate what's in front of you and what you're able to see. And therefore, it interacts and it acts in the way it's supposed to. But the rest of the world, it's just information. It's just a bunch of information that until you're there and you're observing it, then all that information, all those bits that were built into the game, they can now be observed in the way they're supposed to be. And that's what this is saying. It's saying that everything in our reality is acting like a video game, like a simulation. It's not rendering, it's not actually doesn't act in any certain way. It's just a bunch of variables until it's observed. I mean, it's just doesn't get any clearer than that. I mean, they have proven that looking at something puts it into form. So, and I mean, this goes real deep. So, yes, a building, if I'm not looking at a building, is it really there? it is there because it's been put into our reality. We've all seen it. The fact that it was seen has now made it a reality. It's now here. And when you go there, you'll see it. Just like in the video game, when you get there, you'll see it. So that's how these things are developed. The first tree in the world, the very first tree, once someone had the idea of a tree, or once somebody, saw this tree, now trees are real. Now that's a real thing in this world. And now it can be observed and it'll have the characteristics of what was first seen and originated. It'll always be there. So it doesn't mean that, you know, places don't exist any longer. It just means the way they came into fruition and the way we see things are very, very flexible and malleable. Um, it's not just a, rock solid. You can't just say, oh, that building, that's just a rock building that stands there. It's so much deeper than that. That rock building is made up of atoms, right? And they just showed you the experiment of how atoms react. So, we're observing that building, therefore, it's a building. But if it wasn't being observed, if no one has seen that, it'd just be information out there until someone was able to observe it. And I think that shows we live in a simulation. And you got to think, no matter how powerful this simulation is, it's going to create shortcuts, just like games, just like, how games are rendered and stuff. It's going to create shortcuts to save on power. I mean, like I said, no matter how big it is and how much power it has, it still would use things like fractals, which we're finding all throughout our reality, flowers, um, just geometry, um, you know, the math that goes into geometry, and it's just all fractals. Everything is built on a fractal level here in this world, on this realm. So it just, I think, it's a very interesting conversation to have about the simulation theory. It's also one that's been discussed for a very, very long time, but I bring it up just to show, I mean, over the last few years, things have really skyrocketed with AI, and there's a lot more information out there now, and a lot more information that you can dissect, and you can figure out what's real from fake pretty easy now. Fact checking with the AI and everything else. So it's just, these may be some old theories, simulation theory, many world theories, parallel worlds, things of that nature. But we're finding things out now through quantum mechanics, the new physics. We're finding things out that we didn't have a way to study before, that we never knew. Well, now we know, and we're finding ways to study, so we're finding more and more information. And this double slit experiment is just a prime example of it. So I think it's important. I think it's very important. I think it goes right down to the structure of life and reality and the world we live in. So I definitely think, I never thought 42 years old I'd be giving two shits about quantum physics. I don't even think quantum anything was in my mind. But I find it very, very intriguing. I think it holds a lot of answers, and I think it holds a lot of possibilities to our future. It's going to be one heck of a future if we're able to get there. If we can come together and stop all the fighting, and hopefully brighter days are ahead. But unfortunately, I do still think darker days are coming, and they're going to come before those brighter days. So all we can do is keep our heads held high, do our best to help out our neighbor, to help lift others up. It's not about us individually. It's more about the people around us, our family, our loved ones, people you see struggling. We need to lift more people up, and if we do that, our potential is through the roof. We can do anything as humans if we just do it with love. And as these videos have shown, love and putting love into something, just the intention, just your intention of love has an effect on things. Your intention of hate, just the intention has effect on things. So everything is conscious. Everything around us is conscious. Even plants, animals, us, we're all conscious beings. And we're finding more and more out about consciousness that we can manipulate consciousness. We can study consciousness. And by doing so, we're finding that, even rocks and plants and everything else, they are conscious. They are conscious. They hold memory. They react to certain things. Um, they are conscious. We live in a conscious world. The realm we live in our world, it's a conscious world. So everything around us is conscious. So that should show you that everything you do affects everything around you. So let's try to be better people. That's the only thing that we need to do individually that we should be doing, for us is working on us individually, becoming the best person we can be, and becoming that person by offering to lift the next man up, by being there for the people that are struggling. And by doing that, I promise you, you will find your happiness, you will find your desire, you will find your lot in life. And that's where I'm at these days. Just, I've taken a lot of hits in my life, and for a while it was very, very hard to be positive. But after a little while of just hating myself, hating the world, that gets old after a while. And it's either, you know, get to it or just get done with it. So I decided I wanted to make something in my life, and I decided what I wanted to make of it was I wanted to help others. That's what brings me the most peace. That's what brings me the most love. What makes me feel the best is helping others. So um, I think that's important. I think if we could all just do that on a small level, it would help out in such a big, big, big way. So, either way, thank you guys again for joining me here tonight in Night Chats. It was another great episode here. I had fun putting this together. Please, if you could, hit those likes, hit those subscribes. Like I always say, it ain't nothing but a click. It's all you guys got to do. Just click the like, click the subscribe. It don't cost you no money. It don't cost you no effort. You just click, click, boom, bang, bitty bang, bitty bang. It's done. All right. So either way, yeah, it goes a long way. It helped me make more of these videos and actually having a purpose to do it. So please just hit that like, hit that subscribe. I'll stop bugging you about it, but I need to see more of those people. But I appreciate everything. I appreciate the love. Appreciate you stopping by. We'll catch you on the flip side.